guys, what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. We're back here at Jaguar Land Rover St. Pete, and guess what? I have one bad mamma jamma for you. This is it. This is a 2006 Dodge Viper SRT10. But before we get into this 10-cylinder, manual transmission only sports car, let's talk about what's going on here. The Dodge Viper came about in the early 1990s. Now what's interesting is I want to focus on one year in particular, 1996. 96 was the first year of the Viper GTS. That was the actual coupe. Because remember, when they came out with the Viper, it was all about trying to evoke the old experience of the 427 Cobras, because Lee Iacocca, Bob Lutz, and Carroll Shelby were working their magic and trying to get that old school feel. The early Vipers didn't even have exterior door handles or any kind of windows that you could roll up. It came bare bones. Now in 96, that being the first year of the coupe, the first year of the GTS, a lot of things changed. Now they still built the Roadster, which was the convertible, and the coupe. And when they came out with the coupe, that was Gen 2, Generation 2. Now this being a 2006, this is Generation 3. Now don't think that 2006 though was the first year of Generation 3. It wasn't. 2003. So Generation 2, the birth of the coupe, went from 96 to 2002. Then in 2002 they did a redesign, and that's when the third generation came out. And what they did was the Vipers were only available as a convertible, kind of tying it back in to the early Roadster days. Now, with the new generation, the third generation, they got rid of the GTS name. This is not a GTS. This is what's called an SRT10 coupe, and this first came out in 2006. So this example is literally the first year of the third generation of the SRT10 coupe. Now, what's interesting is that if you know your car history, you would know that 2006 was another big year for a competitor to this car. What car is that? The mighty C6 Z06, the sixth generation of the Z06 Corvette. So what I want to find out is, we're going back in time a little bit. I don't have a DeLorean, I got a Viper. I want to find out, is the 2006, this guy right here, SRT10 coupe, is it the better sports car to buy over a 2006 Z06 Corvette? Let's go ahead, let's dive in and find out. Right off the bat, I love the color combination. When they came out with the GTS coupe in 96, this was the main color. Blue with the white racing stripes, absolutely stunning. Now at the front end of the 2006, you could see how they went a little different direction with the design, but there's still a lot of Viper goodness here. You have a larger headlight housing. This was the style of what was going on back then compared to a second gen. You have your projector beam headlight setup. And one thing overall is that this Viper was a little bit more rounded compared to the earlier generations. You do have your circular fog lamps, nicely sunken in to the front bodywork. Nothing fake on this snake. And that rhymes, and I'm a poet and I didn't even freaking know it. Now, as we slide across the front, so much history with this front end being that V10, 10-cylinder American sports car. Many would say an American supercar. I love the way they changed the Viper badge over the different generations. This one having the blue background, those fangs, gonna bite right into your freaking neck. You have your full functionality in the center, this dual level setup to try to bring as much cool air for that V10 to keep things cool when you're running 10 cylinders. And the over-the-top stripes are stunning, and guess what? These are painted on, they're not vinyl. So painted stripes, remember, every Viper was hand assembled in Michigan. Now when we get up onto that low slung hood, you have your functional center air intake with some bulge. Every guy, every girl wants a bulge, and you have, of course, that functional scoop. And then you just notice the sheer length of the front end of this beast. Now what's interesting is that if you look at the Z06 Corvette, you look at this Viper SRT10, you can see the family resemblance between the two different vehicles. Now, as we come around the bend, what are we working with? Wheel and tire setup. So up front, you have these 18-inch wheels, bright, shiny chrome finish to mimic what the 96 GTS was all about. Not my particular style, but I understand why they did it back in 2006 like this. And if you're wondering, well, what kind of tire do we got going on here? First of all, you got that nice chrome wheel with the Viper badge, the SRT, street racing technology, looking good, stamped in. Smaller brake calipers. I mean, those are Brembo 4-piston calipers with the Viper name on it. Remember, we still weren't at a time in 2006 where we had 20-piston calipers like we have today. That was the latest and greatest in braking technology. Up front, 275 on the width, 35 series sidewall, and just the way the car sits, it has a presence to it. Now, as we rise up, you see that beautiful sculpted fender. I'm gonna have Steven swing around and show you the snaky style hood. Look at those heat extractors on both sides of the racing stripes. Those are functional to drag hot air out. And then as we lower it down, you got the Viper SRT10 name. And of course, you have that functional vent that shoots down the side of the vehicle. Now, as we come down the side and we kind of back up, you'll see the length. I mean, parking this next to a Z06, this definitely had that longer, wider style to it than a Z06 Corvette. Another thing that made a return is side pipes. So when the 96 GTS came out, it didn't have side pipes. The exhaust came out the back. For 2003, this is the first coupe to have side pipes. Because remember, there was a problem. A lot of heat coming from the side of the vehicle on those early Roadsters. They decided on both the coupe and the Roadsters to put the exhaust out the back. I'm glad that they brought it back for the side pipes, and wait until you hear the roar. Now, as we rise back up, you can see how the door flares out into the rear fender. You have flush mounted door handles right here to open up the door. You got that double bubble. It's like Hubba Bubba, double bubble roof. So you could get your helmet on and do your track day. Has that snake head shape to it. And then as we kind of swing it around back, you see on the rear, we're talking 345. So 345 on the width, 30 series sidewall, still having those large calipers, and then coming around the back, this is where things get out of control. Look at that flare fender. I mean, this car is so unique in its style. When you bought a Z06 Corvette, yeah, it looked different, but it still looked like a C6. Especially to people of the untrained eye, they wouldn't know a Z06 if it hit them right smack dab between the eyes. When you see one of these, what is it? It's a freaking Viper. Love the way on the rear hatch, how they take it and they just bring up that rear deck lid. That's gonna give us some functional downforce. You can see the work that they did with restyling the taillights, more jelly bean shape. The Dodge name, you actually didn't see that in the final generation of the Viper, believe it or not. They did not have any Dodge name, but this one has the Dodge name. Viper on the other side, and then because we got the side exhaust, look at the massive rear diffuser. This thing is right off of a freaking race car. That's gonna give us that downforce. You got 307 gears, and talk about what's sending the power to those rear wheels, those steamroller rear wheels and tires. Let's go ahead, let's pop the hood and see the heart of the snake with this 2006 Viper. All right, guys, time to get underneath the hood. Now, I wanted to show you in action how to open up the hood on a 2006 Viper, especially if you're at a car show and somebody's like, hey man, can you help me open the hood on my Viper? You wanna look like you know what you're doing, not like a clown. Real simple. What you're gonna do is you're actually gonna reach down right underneath the second level, pull, that pops the hood, and then it's a real simple latch, and then you lift it up and let those hood struts work their magic. There it is. This is what I'm talking about. Today we have so much plastic in engines. That is an engine. That is your 8.3 liter naturally aspirated V10. Love that intake plenum with all the runners, the bright red valve covers with the Viper name on it. What are we talking about though? 500 horsepower, 525 pound-feet of torque. It is mated to one transmission and one transmission only, a Tremec 6-speed manual. 0 to 60, if you know how to do the dance, in 3.7 seconds. Quarter mile goes by in 12 seconds at 121 miles per hour. The vehicle weighs 3,450 pounds. MPGs, if that really matters to you, I could go find a RAV4 Prime for you to roll out of here in if MPGs are what you're about. But you're looking in this car, 12 in the city, 20 on the highway, top speed 190 miles per hour. Remember, if we are comparing this to the 2006 Z06, that had a 7-liter V8. That's a 427 cubic inch V8 that put out 505 horsepower. That was also only available with a 6-speed manual. Now, I love the way you could see the open air box and those two massive race-style air filters that are helping to clean up the air, clean that air, get all the debris out as it goes into the short intake throttle bodies and then into that massive aluminum intake plenum. This is something that I could stare at all freaking day long. And remember, comparing this to the 2006 Corvette, this didn't have a lot of the electronic nannies to keep you safe. This allows the driver to really do the speaking. But since we're talking about talking, and I'm about done talking here, get your towel ready. I'm gonna fire this up and we're gonna share a little eargasm together with this 2006 Viper. All right, guys, we are inside this 2006 Viper SRT10 coupe. I know you're saying to yourself, Joe, I have wanted one of these ever since I was a kid. I had Viper posters all over my walls. I used to have a stuffed snake that I used to sleep with when I was a kid in bed just because I love Vipers so much. How much is this one? So brand new, back in 2006, the MSRP was a little over $91,000. This one with about 5,500 miles in this condition is being listed for $96,000. What we're gonna do is we're gonna compare apples to apples. So I'm not comparing this to a new Corvette. We're gonna compare it to 2006 vehicles. So without further ado, let's see what you get for the money when you go Viper. To the door panels, a lot of hard plastic. Now, it is very clean. There's not like a soft armrest or anything like that. Not a lot of buttons all over the place, but you could see what 2006 was bringing. The Corvette Z06 had a little bit nicer interior. If you compare this to a 2006 911 or something like that, those vehicles definitely look higher end. But that's what you're working with. Door pocket and door panel, no door pocket whatsoever. So you're gonna have to put your Twinkies somewhere else. Now going from the door panel to the dash, same thing. It's a little soft, which is nice, but very simplistic. You got a nice curved area to give your passengers some extra room. You can see what the AC vents were like back in 2006. And then you get to the center stack. No touchscreen, no infotainment. What do we got? We got a nice vertical display of gauges. And I like the way they're all white face gauges. Oil pressure, oil temperature, voltmeter. Talk about old school Pioneer sound system CD player. This is what you got when you bought a brand new Viper back then. Simple AC controls. And then there's that bright red start stop button. Now, like I was saying, just like the Z06, you do get that Tremec 6-speed manual transmission. I'm not really in love with the blue accents in here. I could do without it, but I understand why they did this because this was the return of the coupe. You have the blue leather on your mechanical e-brake, and there is a small number plate here letting you know that this is number 111 of 200 that were built this option spec. This isn't a cup holder. If you look at that, this is an ashtray. Unbelievable that they would even think about that. The only thing I want to smoke in here is the rear tires. No smoking anything in my Viper. We're smoking the tires. Soft on the armrest. Open it up. You can't see, but I'll tell you what I can see. Enough room for 5 race Twinkies. What that means is these Twinkies are not for you. They're for the competition, like the Z06 Corvette where you beat them. give them a Twinkie. It's the least you could do. And you do have a 12 volt, which I highly recommend running not only a radar detector, but also a laser jammer on this vehicle. Speaking of jamming, you're gonna be jamming to the Alpine speakers that are in between the two seats that are highly bolstered. And speaking of seats, here they are, leather, the Viper embroidery in blue, Alcantara, nice bolstering, manual controls for the passenger and the driver. But like I mentioned, with the double bubble, they carved out lots of room to get somebody like myself. I'm 6 feet tall. It's actually not too shabby in here. The only part that's really low is actually what's directly in front of me. The rest of this has been carved out very, very nicely. Plus, if you need more room, this headliner is easily removable. They did that on purpose. But why don't you come over here to the business end? I want to show you behind the freaking white face gauges and this large tachometer and the triple pedals in this Dodge Viper. Come on over. All right, guys, we got engines starting up all around us, but this is the engine that counts the most. In this Viper, you'll notice the massive sill that you gotta climb over. These get very hot, so be careful. Do not place your hand on them. But what I do love are those triple pedals. Look at the freaking way they have that casted, rough aluminum finish, throttle, brake, and clutch. Very tight pedal box, so something to be aware of. Manual seat controls, like I said, for the driver. And getting into this car, you're basically falling in. Once you're in, then you're falling in love. Speaking of that love, the steering wheel, nice, thick rimmed. It is the two-tone, not my favorite, but I do get what they're trying to do with the blue exterior. Very simple. What do we got? The Viper badge and the horn button. Nothing else. That's all you need. Manual tilting and telescoping steering wheel. And then we have the dash. No digital fanciness. Just a big, large tack with the Viper name, your speedometer, and then everything else nicely laid out with the white face gauges. We'll check out the cargo area real quick, but if you're ready, I'm ready, then we're gonna go on throttle. But let's check out the cargo area and then hit the road in this Viper. All right, guys, I'm gonna show you this real quick, only because this is the first 2006 Viper coupe we've ever had on the channel. Pop the rear trunk lid, you lift it up, and just like the Z06 Corvette, you're gonna get a ton of space. Now, not as much room as a Z06 Corvette, but as you can see, listen, tell your significant other, you get a Viper, you'll do the grocery shopping. I promise you'll be able to get plenty of bags in here. Love the way it's usable, but definitely what I want to use it for is not grocery getting. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go on throttle in this 6-speed Tremec equipped Viper. All right, guys, we left Jaguar Land Rover St. Pete. I'm in this 2006 Viper SRT10 coupe. We're gonna leave the windows down. Even though the air works just fine, you gotta hear this V10. But it's interesting because it has a very heavy clutch, but once you get the feel of it, it feels damn good. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. On fire, here we go. Yeah! Golly, I'm telling you right now, this thing feels like a freaking race car. Not so much in the sensation of speed, because there's a lot of fast cars nowadays, but just the whole experience, it's so tactile, so physical in such a very good way. And I'll be honest with you, it's the type of car, it scares me a little bit, because I know it doesn't have like all this fancy traction control and all this other mumbo jumbo stuff, and you got to do it the old-fashioned way with these. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. On fire, here we go. Golly! Wow! The sound, ooh yeah! That heel toe downshifting. Yeah! Woo-hoo-hoo! I'm telling you right now, you gotta be careful or this snake will freaking bite, and she's gonna bite hard. but just everything comes together as you start building speed. Nice short throws from the Tremec. The steering is so precise. It's like you think it and you're already there. And did I tell you about the sound? Absolutely mind-numbing. This is the kind of car that's gonna take your frontal lobe. And remember, your frontal lobe of your brain is all your logic, your judgment, your reasoning. It's just gonna melt it. It's gonna melt it into a mound of mush. I'm telling you, once you get used to the clutch, it does have a high pickup point, and it is on the heavier side, but once you get used to it, it's really not too shabby. The other thing you're gonna have to get used to is that the roof line, how it curves down a little bit, especially somebody tall like myself. You're really looking out of a mail slot in this thing. I love seeing the kick up rear spoiler coming off the hatch with the white and the blue. On throttle, here we go. Oh my God. Where's my towel? I had to bring my towel with me on this one. Oh. You got that nice large tachometer smack dab in the center. This car only redlines at 6,000 RPM. It's not a high rever, but it has gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of torque. Interior, yes. There's a lot of plastic finishes in here. The stereo looks like it's from 1990, but I don't give a damn. I'm in a freaking 10-cylinder, American-built, hand-built Viper. And that's what makes it worth all the while in this thing. Are you ready? On throttle, here we go. Ah! Woo! It makes you feel like a freaking rock star. Here we go. Oh, that sound! But like I said, it's one of those cars that you have to respect, because if you do not, it is gonna bite you and it ain't gonna be pretty. So my advice is, if you get one of these, slowly build into it. Build into the speed. Do not go on throttle immediately once you purchase it. Even if you have experience in other powerful cars, it's just something very different. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Wow. I gotta do some more of this. On throttle. Woohoo! It just, the way everything's laid out in here, it's tight, but it feels right. And I know that sounds really weird in many different ways, but it just gives you that special experience that there's not many cars overall in the history of the car that's gonna do this to you. On throttle. On those brakes. 4-piston calipers. Yeah! Woohoo! I don't want to give the car back, but I know I'll be arrested if I just take it home. So we're gonna get back to Jaguar Land Rover St. Pete and wrap this one up. I'll see you in a snaky second. Oh my God. That was one heck of an experience in this 2006 Viper. Definitely want to thank Miro, Jeff, and the rest of the crew getting us access to this cream puff. Only 5,500 miles on it. But let's talk about what the heck happened here. That raw experience, rowing through that Tremec 6-speed, the sound of the V10 shattering our eardrums through the side pipes. I don't know about you, but I would go 06 Viper over an 06 Z06. You just have to. But let me know which way you would go with your hard-earned money. Put it in that comment section. But if you're new to the channel, you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. Come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Radies Rides family. We got to give it up to Stephen Flood. Stephen Flood Photography, taking his first ride in a Viper. He got bit by the snake and he enjoyed dying a sweet death. So thank you, Stephen, for all that you do. I'll get you to the hospital. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.